All right, going live. I don't know if anyone's going to come in here, but I'm just going to kind of start using this site and see how it works. I don't know if how the comments work, so this will be all be my first time actually doing this. If somebody jumps in, great. If not, great. Just giving it a shot and just seeing what's going on. Hey, what's going on, Mr. Armstrong? So we're just gonna jump in here, man. I feel that I've had a lot of great friends checking out some of my videos, and I really do appreciate that. So I just kind of wanted to take some time, maybe over a series, just kind of talking through my approach to music. What's going on, Brother Perez? And but anyway, if you got anybody got some questions or ideas or thoughts that we can kind of talk through, that would be good, and everything. But I just want to I won't hold you long. One thing is for switching between keys. For me, it really starts with understanding the major scales, and there's 12 scales, and everything. So understanding the transitions between scales, as far as like you're talking about modulations, going from one key to the next. If you're talking about modulations, one thing that I like to do is, like, for example, if I'm in the key of C, understanding my progressions, my one chord being my C, my D minor, my C over E, my F to my 5 chord, and say I want to go to D flat from C. One progression that a lot of people will do would just go up to the 5 of D flat, and by hitting that 5, the A flat, kind of like an A flat suspended, and resolve to D flat. So let's say if I'm walking down from in the key of C, C, G over B, A minor, to the G, F major, C over E, D minor, take it up to A flat. And what I did there on that A flat, just kind of like a G flat major, and resolve to D flat. What I like to do, like I've done on one of my videos, is actually I'll play through all of my chord progressions in every key. My one, and I number my scales pretty much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to 1. I'll number my scales in my mind because a lot of us band guys will use the number system. I'll number those scales, and really know that my 1 chord is going to be major, my 4 chord is going to be major, my 5 chord is going to be major, and then my 2, my 3, and my 6 are going to be minor chords. Okay, my 7 is going to be a diminished sound, and I'll just play those progressions pretty cool through all 12 keys. So I think one thing about transcribing, I think transcribing is really good because it's going to train your ear to hear a lot of sounds. The one challenge I think about transcription is if I do too much transcription without understanding why they did what they did, meaning that I can transcribe note for note, but I don't understand the key center, don't understand the chord progressions, or I'm not listening for the chord progressions. I try to do a lot of those things. What's the melody doing? What's the band doing? What's the chords under that transcription? So I can make sure I understand how it all comes together. And I like thinking of music like a house, understanding that the bass line is the foundation, the harmonies are the walls, and the melody is like the roof. And so sometimes it's really easy to get caught up with transcribing melodies on the rooftop and not really looking at the foundation as far as the bass line and the rhythms. So I like make sure that when I'm transcribing, a line, are they on the second progression, or are they on the, what's the progression, what's the pattern of the music? So I think it's good to transcribe, but also think it's good to know what's been transcribed over, because you hear that a lot with vocalists sometimes, where they'll start singing a line and copying another vocalist when they're singing. But if they're copying this vocalist and not knowing when to use those things, then it becomes a challenge, as far as like, wow, I don't know when to actually use these harmonies or things like that, if that makes sense. So I like to transcribe, but I like to understand progressions, and I kind of like to do them both. So for me, I like to write a lot of rhythm charts for just the chord progressions because that helps me see how it all comes together. And so, yeah, you'll start hearing a lot of triads. What I like to do for a lot of my chords is I like to use a lot of major triads over tritones. And you'll see that on like one of the videos when I'm started using sharp 9, sharp 5. And it's a really good experiment to just listen for example, say I'm playing a C bass, and just start playing different triads and see what sound good, even before we understand what they are. But like I play C over C, so like upper structure voicing, well, I'll answer that question. But one thing is like I'll do like, say, for example, C bass, then a D flat over C, D over C, E flat over C, E over C, F, G. So you'll start doing that on every bass. Like what sounds good together. Then instead of just playing the C bass, I might just do the C tritone where I play the E and the B flat. So I'm playing an E and a B flat. Then I'll just listen to C major chord. Oh, I like that. The D over the tritone. That gives me another sound. G flat over that. That doesn't work. A flat. Then A. So you'll find that, wait, there's some pretty good triads that give you the upper structure sound. And to that point about like using upper structure triads, what I like to do is stack all of my odd numbers on the scale. Say, for example, if I'm in the C again, I stack the 1, the 3, the 5, the 7, the 9, the 11, and the 13. And basically those notes are basically skipping every other note, so playing a C, a E, a G, a B, a D, an F, an A. Then you can look at that and say, wait, there's a lot of chords in there. I got the C chord at the bottom, 1, 3, 5. I have my E minor, E, G, B. I have a G major, G, B, C. Then I also have a B minor. It's B diminished, but so what a lot of people will do is say, I'm going to raise that F to an F sharp. And then you'll just start looking at different triads saying, okay, well, I got a D major chord I can play over C. I have an E minor chord I can play over C. I have a G I can play over C. I can play B minor over C. So a lot of those upper structure sounds can come from, again, exploring the scale. For me, I really believe that the major scale is pretty much one of the best things to start with, because again, the scale to me is like understanding the alphabet. The scale is also kind of like the backbone of everything that we're going to do musically. And so usually when I found myself running into problems, I found myself running out of ideas because I didn't know what my options were. Let me see if I can get that message to pop up again. Yeah, these messages are going away like real quick. Hold up, let's see. So let me ask this. Okay, so someone asked, can you what numbers of the scales can you play dominant chords on? Usually you're going to hear dominant chords on the 5, but you can also set it up a dominant sound on the 2. Say for if I'm in D flat, okay, and I'm playing a D flat and I want to go to the 5, I can play an A flat dominant, A flat 7. So if I wanted to go to like Never Would Have Made It, so dominant on the 5, never would have made it, never would have made it without you. So I can do a dominant on the 5. Another thing is I can do it on the 2. So especially in old school gospel, you would hear it like if I'm getting ready to go from the try to get me to the 5. If I'm on the 1, 6, 2, 3, going to the 4. Now I'm getting ready to set up to the 5. I did a E flat dominant to set me up to go to the 5. So I can use dominant sounds on the 2 to set me up to the 5. And these are not all full exclusive, meaning that, I mean, they're all encompassing. A lot of times you can, what I did to get me to the 3, you know, that E flat dominant, I use that E flat dominant to go to the 5, A flat dominant. But I can also do a passing tone down from F dominant, E dominant, E flat. So F dominant, so the F7. So F dominant, E dominant, E flat dominant, and set it up to go to the 5. So if I'm on the 1 and want to go to the 5 through the 2 dominant, I can be the 1. So that's another sound that I can do, you know. So a lot of times you'll hear some, you know, transitions, what we call chromatics, hitting every half tone or every half step. You can do something on the 3, the flat 3 to the 2 to kind of, you know, to get to where you want to go. Somebody said, anybody else? Different rhythms, paired triads could be used in, like, in C, got you, and in D, definitely. Broken chords, different rhythms, you know. So again, a lot of my soloing, I use a lot of I use a lot of basically soloing on major chords and things like that. And so what I'll do, as I do more of these, Mr. Perez, I'm gonna get me one of those. I already have it. It's just not set up because basically I didn't know. This is my first time trying YouTube, so I didn't know exactly how this thing was gonna work. I didn't know if it was gonna be like Facebook or if you could see comments. But I do have you know, I do have a holder that can actually show the hands overhead. So let me slide this time, man. I'll do better next time, you know, when I try to get in there. So tonight I just wanted to kind of test it out and see how it all comes together. But for me, I do have some new drills that I've been working on, and so basically I've been trying to come up with new drills that are real practical. For example, there's a drill that I'm working on now where you can literally, in all 12 keys, just play a 1, a 4, or a 5 chord. Okay, so for example, in the key of C, the 1 chord is C, the 4 chord is F, the 5 chord is G. So what I'll do is, like with students, just to get them used to using kind of like what we were talking about earlier, just the upper structure stuff, the F chord, or just major chords. I will have them do something like this, you know, C over, just C on the 1. Then I'll do a 4 over 2, which will give a D minor 7. Then I will go to 5 over 3. And then I'll do a 4 chord. And then I'll go to the 5 chord G. I'll do a 1 over 6, C over A, G over B, back home. And so, and the way I'm playing my major chords, I'm going to hold this up here just so we can see for a second, see if it'll do a little bit better. I'm playing my major chords with 4 notes. So I'm just doubling up my G's. Then when I go to the F chord, I'm doubling up the A's. And then my G chord and doubling up the G's again. Okay? So that allows me to kind of have a fuller sound when I'm playing the C, F over D, G over E, F, G, C over A, then G over B, back home. So I'll do that in all 12 keys, but notice, only thing we're playing is a 1, a 4, and a 5 chord. No matter what level of musician, because some folk will say, well, ain't that pretty basic? So man, if everyone gets comfortable playing major chords, then we can get into the really fat, meaty stuff where you start doing tritones and major chords, tritones and minor chords, because it still sounds really good when the hands are used to playing those sounds. And I will do that in all 12 keys. And by doing that in all 12 keys, that will allow me to really flow where, you know, like in C, you know, and I'm playing that sound, you know, and it still sounds good even if I were basically doing like some pretty cool progressions. Slash chords. I need to do a video on that, but for the most part, when it comes to slash chords, like for example, C over E, you know, like a 1/3, C over E, which is really kind of like an inversion of a C chord, kind of like a C inversion. But if I play a C major chord over E bass, I can use those type of chords either on the third progression, and I can use that type of chord on the 7. So what I'm going to do now is, like, for example, I'll play this C chord, F over D, C over E. There's that slash chord that I have there. F, G, A minor, G over B on the 7 because it sounds better on the 7 back home. Okay? I'll use those on the 3, all 12 keys. The 3s and 7s, all 12 keys. So basically, in my mind, with those slash chords, I'm going to go through in my head and say, okay, I need to memorize slash chords and know where they are. C over E in on the 3 of C, G over B on the 7 of C. Then I go to the key of G. G over B is on the 3, and then I'm going to use a D over F sharp on the 7. One thing that you'll notice is when you begin to write these progressions out, and what I'm going to do is I'll try to put this in my Dropbox, and if you all would just hit me up if you wanna see it. I'm going to see where my pop progressions are. You probably won't be able to see it that well, but basically the whole point is when you're looking at the 3 chord there, it's probably a little blurry, sorry about that, but you'll see the 3 chord where I have my slash chords in all 12 keys, and then basically my slash chords on the 7. One thing that you'll notice with those slash chords is that, for example, if you go around the circle of fifths, you know, C, D, E, F, G, then A minor, G over B, C, you'll begin to notice that the last half from the 5 to the 5 to 1, you'll begin to notice that the last half of the C scale is the setup for the G scale. So when you practice your C scale, you're already getting the progressions for G scale when you get to the 5. When you play your G scale and you get to D, you're already playing the progressions with a slash chord for the key of D. So literally, as you practice all your progressions in all 12 keys, it's setting you up for the next key as you work around the circle of fifths. So it's you know, as you practice one scale again, half of it is already the first half of the next key. So it's a really good practice. Yeah, inversions, man, come in very handy. And because those inversions really, like I said, it keeps you kind of like localized and everything. So I try to do my best to invert as much as possible. And so one drill that I'll do, I might do just a root of major chords, all 12 keys. And just coming down, it's just all major. That's root, then first inversion. Second inversion. You know, and then I'll even break it up, you know, and I'm just playing all major, just breaking them up. And I'm doing that mainly for muscle memory, because what I'm trying to do a lot of times is when I'm doing that for muscle memory is so that I can actually think more about the song and engaging without having to you know, think so much about what I'm doing with my hands. So one thing that I like to do when I practice, I might try to practice either my scales or play some chord progressions, and then I'll read a document. You know, whatever that document is, I'll just pick up some document and I'll just start reading the text and try to read it without messing up my cadence. And I'm not doing it in time. that forces me to be able to multitask and say, okay, can I actually read something and practice at the same time? So if I'm actually, for example, I'll give an example. Maybe I'm not reading. Maybe I'm just talking to, like to you. So my deal is like saying, can I actually still work my way through the scales and still be able to keep the conversation going, and then change keys and not really stop my flow? And so that's a challenge, because sometimes I have to get a break and say, where am I? And so by working through those scales, the whole point is that you want to be able to say that I can actually flow and not really think about what I'm doing, because I want my hands to become more of a muscle memory and not so much about thinking, because if I think too much about it, I'm not going to be able to flow like I really want to. So the whole point of practicing is not so much about filling your head with information as much as it is getting as much muscle memory into your hands so it becomes natural. Because like when we're walking across the room, we're not thinking about one foot in front of the other. It's like second nature, so I think about theory when I'm practicing, but when it's time to perform, kind of like Chick Corea and all these guys, they'll say, study your stuff and then forget about it, study and forget, so when I'm putting stuff online, it's really not so much to try to sound like a professor or anything. It's not really. I'm just trying to give some quick technique tips or whatever. But then once you get it in your muscle memory and it's time to flow, you forget about it and just kind of keep it moving on to the next thing, And so that's some things that I try to do with that. As far as the slash chords that we were talking about earlier, what I try to do is again use them on the 1, the 3, and the 7, and I'll use them also on the accidentals. And so by practicing my skills, I can begin to identify my accidentals. And an accidental is simply a note that's outside of the scale. So basically, hey man, it'll come, man. It's a lot of it came from really just forcing myself to do it. And you should have seen me struggle. I have students that we do it now, where I have students really like, they'll start practicing their scales, and probably like 2 weeks into scales, I'll just put a document up there and say, read, or while they're playing their scale, I'll ask them about their day. And they have to begin to share what they did for the day. And so they're sitting there. Well, today I had a science test, and I think I did pretty good. It was actually on chemistry, and we were actually talking about elements and compounds and all that kind of stuff. So I had to study salt and sodium chlorine or sodium chloride, and had to study hydrogen two hydrogens and an oxygen and all that kind of stuff. And they're having to go through all of that. And of course, the first couple of times they are like about to flip out, and I was like, hey, relax, man, because at the end of the day, the hard thing is that music is not really the product. Music is a conduit, and so I don't want to make folks feel like, coming into this environment that is so much about, you got to know this. Like, no, let's just get some tips and then let's go explore, because I believe it's 3 layers. Be inspired. After you're inspired, we're going to learn what inspires us, and then we're going to practice what inspires us. So if we're doing things that don't inspire us, we're usually going to lose our motivation to want to learn it. We're going to lose our motivation to practice it. And Richard, on that science stuff, what I actually do a lot of times, I will actually write science songs based on periodic tables with my students that are in science, because it forces them to study and practice at the same time. So for example, if they want to write a song about H2O, well, then they know that hydrogen is number 1 on the periodic table and that oxygen is number 8. And I need 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen to make water. So therefore, I'll say, okay, well, let's pick a key. So, well, let's do it in C. Okay, so your melody is, all right. So now I'll say, okay, well, in order to make it nice, I'm going to play that 1-1-8 on a D flat major 7. And then I'll name that song Water. They say, well, why'd you name the song Water? I said, well, because I did a 1-1-8, basically 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen. Hydrogen is number 1 on the periodic table. Oxygen is number 8. So I did 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen, and then came together, titled the song Water. So then when they take their science exam, they'll hear that melody in their head. They'll ace the test because they can actually flow with the idea of, wow, I'm using periodic numbers. And we can do that for salt. We can do that for any compound that they're doing. We can, and another drill as far as training the ear, sometimes I'll have students sing their multiplication tables, where basically they'll have, for example, 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8, and they have to sing through all of that and going no higher than 9, so now you're training your ear, you're studying math, all of that good stuff. And so we can do that whether we're doing multiplication, we can do that with division, we can do that with exponents and all that kind of stuff, because again, the whole point of music is to convey an idea or to convey a thought. And imagine putting so much of your thoughts into the song. If you're talking about relationships, if you're talking about change or influence, it's like there'll be things where I'm like, okay, man, I really want to talk about, patriotism or whatever. And we're right in the middle of a lot of craziness and patriotism, so we can have key dates that we can put into our songs and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's just some stuff that I like to do. And so mainly what I'll build on and things like that is basically saying, again, spending some time with the scales. That's level 1. Let's see. I think I do see value in playing in one key for muscle memory. I do see a lot of value in that. However, while I'm practicing, I want to also be thinking about where I am. I got my muscle memory, but again, what are my progressions? Am I on the 1, the 4, 2, 5, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 6, 2, 5, 1? While I'm getting that muscle memory, I want to call out where I am, because if I'm able to call out where I am from a progressional purpose, then I can take what I practiced in that key and got the muscle memory on and transpose it to another key. So if I'm sitting on, say, okay, well, I want to go 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5, 1. Well, let's do it in E flat. Okay. And getting that idea working down. So yes, get the muscle memory. While you're getting the muscle memory, continue to ask the question, where am I? Why did I play those progressions? And when I learn a song, why did I play those chords? Because I usually tell students over and over, I can teach you songs all day long, but if I don't know why I did it, then I'm going to be stuck playing just that song in that key. I can't transpose it, so I want to be able to say, why did I do that? So I can be able to transpose to other things as well. So muscle memory is definitely important. Training those ears. Sometimes, a lot of times, we don't have the time to be at an instrument, so sometimes I train my ear with the tires on the car. So if I hear the tires, yon, 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 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6, 1, 7, 1, 8, I'm going to train with every tone that I come across. If someone's speaking over there, I want to be listening for their tone and their voice, so I can actually begin to train my ear for intervals, the distance between notes with their voices. Let's say, Richard, I'll ask the question, what would you say the primary hindrance for your ability to transpose? Would you say it's scale knowledge, chord knowledge, or chord pattern knowledge? What would be kind of the hindrance there? And I can kind of share maybe some things that I had to do. And because one of the things that happened to me as a gospel artist, a major artist back in 2000, was singing a song, and oh how I love Jesus, and basically when I basically got on stage, I started playing, and she was in the key of D. And if y'all know anything about gospel, a lot of us brothers weren't playing in D. Those are guitar playing keys, like acoustic guitar players wanted to play in D and G and A. So I grew up playing in flats, even though I studied classical, but at church I was playing in flats. She started playing that in the key of D, And I'm honest to goodness, I got up there and sounded a hot mess. And so she turned it around and looked at me and just gave me the fist and like say, get off the stage. Well, that was the first time I said, you know what? I have a very strong ear, but I never really practiced my skills since I stopped taking lessons way back in 1988. And this was 2000. So I in 2000, I had to just go back to the drawing board and say, you know what? I'm going back to the basics. I'm studying scales. I'm going to practice my scales. Yep, that was me. Comfort zone, and knowing the original tune until somebody did it in another key, and that forced me to start asking, as far as what do I need to do in order to start playing and thinking those ideas. And I start doing that in E, A, B, and all of these different things to get that muscle memory. So again, just drilling. I drill a whole lot more on patterns and a whole lot less on songs. And so, matter of fact, like I say, even with me, I stopped playing a lot of songs. I stopped playing a lot of tunes. I'm just playing patterns. And by writing out the chord charts on the songs I know that I'm really familiar with and writing the number system, I'm on the 4, the 3, I just started transposing to other keys based on those patterns and practicing those patterns over and over. Let's see, somebody said, what amp or speaker would you play through live in a mid-sized venue or church? Like it loud, play keyboard myself. I really like the Roland 500. I think it's the K series. 1 second, let me look at there. So I'm actually playing on the Roland KC 550, and I like it because it has a nice full range of sound. You get the lows, you get the highs. That thing, it's got a lot of watts to it, so it can really push. I can push it in a room, almost in some rooms without a sound system. It can kick. I've run into a lot of things that basically just limit it. I'll play through. I don't want to blast any other body amp, but a lot of times they don't have the low end, and then sometimes they don't have the hardware because I realized that a lot of the hardware just doesn't last. Some of the graphic EQ starts breaking off, keyboard knobs start missing after 2 gigs. So this Roland is heavy, but it's steady and it's sturdy. So I like the Roland K. And then you got line outs on it, so you can plug that into the sound system, use it as your monitor and all that kind of stuff. And I've done a number of gigs on that the Roland KC 550. Really cool thing. Let's see. Let's see, did I miss any questions here? Elaborating on the 7th chord you just played in that progression. Let's see. Are you talking about the last progression or the ones I did earlier as far as going to the 7th chord and coming through and playing through the 2? 1 second. I want someone to play for church. Are there any keys that you find impractical? For instance, often do you use flats? Well, if you're playing contemporary Christian music, a lot of times most people are going to play in the keys of C, G, D, A, E, maybe B, and then F. Contemporary Christian meaning that the band has an acoustic guitar player. They're going to have electric guitar player. They're going to have someone on keys. But a lot of times the band's going to be driven by a guitar player. Once you get on acoustic guitar, and if they're not using the capo, sometimes it can get kind of difficult for some people to bar and play, in A flat and D flat and things like that. That's more of your contemporary Christian, your CCM kind of bands. Gospel, a lot of times you'll begin to see, tunes, for example, in the key of, D flat, all your flats. But you won't see a lot of songs in B or A because, again, a lot of times the keyboard players are playing in flats, kind of like just a preference, D flat, A flat, B flat, maybe F, and things like that. So mainly it's a challenge for them to do that. So I think, when you start out, it's the next thing is not only like what keys are impractical. You got to think about if you're thinking about church, you got to think about your audience as well. Because sometimes a lot of our songs are so high, we blow out a lot of vocals because the sopranos are in the rafters and tenors are in the rafters because we're trying to play in the original key. I usually try to think through, like, for example, your congregation's typically going to have an alto voice, and your men are going to have more of a baritone voice. But there are some artists out there that their voice is high. And so when we're trying to copy those voices, then folks will find themselves screaming, blowing their voices out, losing their range. So sometimes a key might be practical for the band, but it might be impractical for the vocals based on where that melody as well. Augmented chords. So basically an augmented chord is where you actually raise your 5. So if you're familiar with the song At Last, you'll hear that song on the 5. So if it's the song's in the key of F. So if I do a C augmented, at last, going to the 2, back to the 5 augmented. All right. So you can use that augmented on the 5 is a really good thing there. So if you're sitting there, even if you're doing bluesy something, going to 4, so you can do it on the 5. You know, it's not always a popular contemporary R&B or something to sound, but it's still you know, it has more of a traditional sound, you know, with that augmented. But once you start using augmented sounds, usually in contemporary sounds, you're going to actually start adding, you know, your sharp 9s and all that kind of stuff. You know, so you're basically putting more stuff in there instead of just the augmented. You'll actually start hearing that. But a lot of your augmented is going to be 5 progressions, not only, but that's when you hear them. You hear them quite a bit. All right, cool, Will. Thanks for hanging out, man. I'm about to sign off too, but let me do this. Somebody said the progression. What was that progression you were talking about? Let's see if I can get it pop up here. The 1 7 6 5 4 3. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so therefore, the 7 chord is actually my 7th progression there. So for example, when I'm playing that 7th progression, that's where I'm going to use a kind of like my G over B. If I'm in C and I'm walking down, you know, so my C chord, G over B, A minor to the 5, my G chord, F major 7, C over E, then D minor to the G sus, and I can go A flat. I'm in D flat, A flat over C. There's my 7 again, where I'm doing like the slash chords. A flat over C, B flat minor, A flat major, G flat major 7. I'm doing like F minor. I'm doing E flat minor, A flat sus, my bad, G sus, back onto the D, A over C sharp. So when I'm walking down to the 7 chord, I'm using those slash chords, and the slash chord is really a 5 chord over a 7 bass. So if I'm coming D to the 7 chord, I can do an A, which is the 5 chord, for D, and then a C sharp for D is my 7. So if you do a 5 over 7 for your 7 chord, and you can do a 1 over 3 for your 3 chord, that's how you can use those slash chords. You know, there. Let's see. I have an exercise for drop 2s and to do it for triads and also for 7 chords. All right. Let's see. I've heard drop 7s, drop 2s. If you can kind of get me a little bit more familiar with that one, I'll do my best to explain it before I sign off. But yeah, the drop 2s, the drop 7 like half step on my 2-5-1s are real popular. I'll try to do that. Oh man, you're welcome. I'll try to do my best to explain it, but hit me in my email. My email is just jbmccrae@joelmccrae.com. You know, we'll try to do this some more, guys. I just wanted to come online and just hang out a little bit, and I really appreciate those that they came and hung out and everything. So yeah, the 7th definitely makes it more contemporary. So thank y'all so much. We'll do this again, and just I might do Mondays or whatever. But again, I appreciate your time, and yes, I do Skype and everything. But Tyree, hopefully it saves. This is my first time actually doing it. And Ernest, man, it's good to see you, my brother. And Cedric, good to see you, man. I appreciate you all. We'll do it again. Like this is just the beginning. And oh man, y'all cool. Okay, so CEG, drop the E. Got you. And then I'm gonna play around with that drop, the drop 2, and come back with some other ideas. I appreciate it, man. Y'all are awesome, and we'll do it again. Y'all have a blessed evening, and hit me with a ton of questions, man. We're gonna stretch it out. We'll turn this into some resources that hopefully can help a lot of people, and that's what it's all about. Us growing together. Y'all be blessed. All right, take care.